Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Henry County voters. Thank you for all coming today. I would like to call our Board of Elections and Voter Registration meeting to order today. It's 1 p.m. I would like to start with an invocation. Let us pray. Father God, when your disciples ask you what to pray and how to pray, you answered them with this prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Deliver us from evil. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Let us stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We move on to our acceptance of the agenda. Are there any changes or discussion about the agenda today? Do I have a motion to pass the agenda as accepted, as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All right, the agenda is accepted as submitted. We move on to the acceptance of the board minutes, which were on May the 4th, 2020. Are there any discussions about the board minutes?
So moved.
Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept the agenda? Thank you, Board Member Callaway. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Board Member Finney. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We move on to the director's report. Could Director Amika Pitts come and give us the status update and the board request?
I would like to say good afternoon, board and gift. Starting with the status report this morning, I'm going to allow Board Member Callaway to announce a special announcement that he is requesting.
Thank you. This is an announcement for the Henry County Board of Elections and Voter Registration, the Henry County Republican Party, the Director of Elections, the Henry County Elections and Voter Registration employees past and present, the many volunteers who served in so many elections. Today, I'm informing you of my intention to resign my position on the Henry County Board of Elections and Registration as of June the 30th, 2022. Also, I ask that my appointment be extended if need be until my replacement is sworn in and seated. I've had the great privilege and honor to be part of Henry County Board of Elections and Voter Registration for the past 11 years. I regret that it is my time to step aside and resign. I have served with many dedicated, talented, and responsible board members and employees that served with the Henry County Board of Elections and Voter Registration. The respect and support from all my associations were truly appreciated and will not be forgotten. I would like to thank the Henry County Republican Party for this opportunity to serve Henry County electors, Henry County, the state of Georgia, and the United States of America.
Thank you, Board Member Calloway. It's a bittersweet moment to hear that, but we wish you nothing but the best. So we're going to start with following on Monday before Election Day, which was May 23rd. We got faced with some challenges. We had challenges of truck rentals that were supposed to be a total of 10, where we only got 5. There was some miscommunication of getting some assistance from the county, and so the assistance meaning staff to come help us load equipment and take it to the different polling locations to deliver, not having enough assistance in that. So it was nothing normal that we don't go through on a regular election day. I reached out to several people that were assisting me to have staff, just checking in to see what took place and happened. And I just think there was a matter of someone either forgetting or either didn't have enough staff, as to my understanding. But thank God that towards the end of the day, being slow with getting the equipment out, our county manager, Sherry Matthews, had got word that we were in a slump of getting delayed in getting equipment out. She got an opportunity to pull a lot of county departments, from the fire department, police department, planning and zoning director, transit, risk management. I can just go on. And they showed up and showed out and came up with bringing some buses from transit and helped us to complete the day of delivering the equipment, which started out as something that was a headache and ended up smoothing out in the end. I just wanted to make sure that I recognize county manager as well as the administration, Team Henry, that came together to help us. And not only did they not do that for us on Monday, they worked hard on election day to come up with a plan where, and Ashley was able to get us more trucks that we were not able to get. And they knocked out on the day after election a job that took 8 to 9 people, 12 plus hours. We knocked it out in less than 3 hours with their assistance, and I'm just very grateful for them stepping in and helping us.
Madam Chair, were any voters impacted by this?
No, ma'am, this was the day before the election and the day after. This was our delivery of equipment to the polling locations, as well as our pickup of equipment the day after the election.
Madam Chair. However, I did want to share with the board that there were several poll managers that were affected by this. They shared their information with me during the time when I was rounding on my polling places, that they were affected by the delay of the equipment, and that was something they were really concerned about, which is why I asked for this to be added to the agenda to talk about today. Thank you, Director Pitts.
Yes, ma'am. Next, on election day, we had some issues from, let's back up, I apologize. We have a few issues that took place during the whole time of voting. To go back to early voting, there was some issues with power outages. There also was some issues with the internet outage, as well as ENET. ENET went down. There were times where we were not able to give credit. We had to put applications to the side so that we can make sure we are sure to give credit to people that voted. Because although we had these outages, we came together, whether we use our cell phones and made sure we use hotspots, we were able to continue to go forward and not being able to have to turn anybody away, although we had those outages. But I just wanted you all to be aware of that.
And I do have one question regarding ENET.
Yes, ma'am.
Were the Secretary of State's office notified regarding your ENET problems?
Well, after we knew about it, yes, ma'am. They did notify us eventually, but we found out about it before they notified us. We just went back into, a backup plan that we normally do when something like that happens, where we use our phones to be able to have internet access so we can continue the flow of voting. That way we can know where the voters voted, so we can give them the correct ballot, as well as to be able to give them their applications.
Madam Director, is it true that ENET was not operational on election day to make these changes to the district redistricting issues?
So the redistricting issues as far as ENET, it was not. It was the poll pads by the vendor No Ink. When they pulled the information to go to the poll pads, they actually pulled it previous to the date where we had made corrections in redistricting. And so therefore, we still had an issue that I was going to discuss, so we can go into that if you like. What took place was voters that were in District 4, they end up getting District 3 ballots. So it was an area, Hickory Flat area. And if I can ask Catherine to come up, she's the lead on this, so that way, if I say anything incorrectly, she can make sure that I'm being correct. When this one young lady, an elector, her name is Miss Bell. Miss Bell noticed during May 11th, when she pulled up her sample ballot, that it wasn't the correct sample ballot. She contacted us. We made the changes, put everybody where they're supposed to be, went back for, I don't know, the 100th time, maybe I'm a little exaggerating, but it was a lot of times, to make sure that everyone was as supposed to be. So this goes back to your question, where it wasn't ElectionNet that was the problem. It was No Ink pulling the information from ElectionNet, and they did it previous to us making the correction. So when they updated the poll pads the Saturday weekend before the election, so that way people that voted for early voting or absentee by mail, these are the things that they updated. They didn't update everything. And so that's why they ran into the situation with getting the wrong ballot. And how we found that out, the same young lady that noticed that sample ballot wasn't correct, she knew we had made the correction because we had spoken with her as well after the fact. She explained it to the manager. Hey, I've talked with the election office. They knew about it. They corrected it, but this is not correct. But unfortunately, she did this in the final hour. It was no way for us to make any type of corrections going forward till the end of the election day that closed at 7. And that's when we got advice from our county attorney to just make a public statement, letting everyone know what took place. And some of the things that you all may not be aware of or may be, there are other counties that had some of these same situations happen here in Georgia. Henry County was not the only one. And also, there were situations where I think it was exactly 140 voters, it was 140, that we wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of. And ENET had jumped from, let me start over, let me say this clearly. Secretary of State has an election system that was called Jarvis, that they switched back and forth from their old system, ElectionNet. And a lot of that took place during our redistricting. So that had may have had, I cannot, make allegations that would happen, but we had a lot of back and forth with election systems during this time. So we are apologetic with this happening. It was just an error, and it was a big error, but we are apologetic for it happening.
Was it just one poll pad that was did not have ink?
No, it was the poll pad that actually, when you put the card in, the green card that you take to your BMD to vote, it's the actual little tablet that creates that card. And that information that was loaded to that one was previous to us making those corrections. They didn't grab the information once we made the corrections.
Are voters notified if their precinct changes before the election?
So we actually have been discussing this through verbal and some on Facebook. They were supposed to get new precinct cards, but with a statewide redistricting and having everyone to have new cards, we have yet to receive our precinct cards. But we made sure that we let it be known that people can check their Georgia My Voter page so that they can know where to go, and also check their sample ballot.
Madam Chair, Director Pitts, the vendor No Ink, for clarification, does that information pull from the Secretary of State information?
Yes, from ElectionNet.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question regarding tools that are used by the Georgia Secretary of State's office. to help them with federal and state districts following the redistricting. There's a tool that they use to ensure that, that the voters are in the right district. I want to know if the state has provided us with tools, or do they have tools available to help us with local elections, example, the county and city elections.
If you don't mind, I'll allow Catherine to explain that better. She worked with that.
There was a quality assurance tool that the state had strictly for the state elections. Our department, our GIS department, is who assisted us with ours by receiving our shape files from the legislature, and then they went street by street, every street in Henry County, based on that shape file, and gave me thousands of pages of reports to use for our local lines. There is no tool.
Madam Chair, I think we need to ask the Georgia Secretary of State's office if they've developed a tool for them to use in state and federal elections, why can't we have a tool developed to help us with local elections?
So to rectify this situation, once talking with County Attorney Nancy Rowan, we drafted a public announcement, and what we did was allow her to go over and make sure it looked, suitable. We forwarded to you all to approve, which you did. And so what I did was I took the time to get in touch with Ms. Bell, the elector that initially brought it to our attention. I called her personally and explained it to her and sent her the statement, as well as contacting the candidates, Ms. Sophie Pope and Ms. Dr. Deborah Sykes, and explained the situation to them as well, and forward them the statement that we were going to publish publicly. Once I notified them first so they would not hear it amongst everyone else, then our awesome communications team posted it for us. Even it was after 5 o'clock, they immediately stepped in and helped us and have that posted publicly. And also, according to law, although there are fraudulent and erroneous that may take place, which this one was not fraudulent, it was erroneous, we still have to go forward with certifying the election, which we did on yesterday. So we made sure that, because of the law saying that once we do this, we have to make sure we contact the district attorney to just give them facts on what took place, which I did. I reached out to District Attorney Patello, and I also was instructed by the Secretary of State when I reported it to them. They wanted me to do several things. They wanted me to, one, contact the county attorney to get instruction. They wanted us to come back and follow up with them on what took place, and to also reach out to Center of Election Systems to make sure that this didn't happen again and everything is rectified before the next election. So I did all of those things, and then I also updated, and he asked me to update him. Him is Xavier Harris, he's our liaison. And once I did all those things, I updated and followed up with him, letting him know that we did all these things. And he told, his update was that he would definitely put it in our files, and he appreciated us making sure that we made the Secretary of State aware.
Have you had any feedback from the Georgia Secretary of State's office?
Other than when I reported to him to let him know what took place, and let him know that I followed all his instructions on what I should do, he just said that he would make sure that they placed it in our file.
And what day did you contact the candidates? Was that Friday evening or Saturday?
Friday evening.
Okay,
It was in the 4 o'clock hour.
okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Director Hicks and Mrs. Catherine. It sounds like from what you've said, the Secretary of State has not provided any feedback on what to do going forward. So I'm going to ask you both, have you thought about any troubleshooting, anything that you can do for the runoff to make sure this doesn't happen again? And if you have, can you please share that with us?
It is my all intensive purposes to audit it is a big job, but between now and when the next file that they're going to use for the runoff is created, that I will verify all the districts in each precinct. And we did not have any voters move precincts. There were no precinct changes, only local lines changed after the state and federal. But there will be an audit.
Also, Madam Chair, before Election Day, is that during the poll pads sound like they are updated ahead of time? Is there any way that you can check the poll pads before they are sent out to the polling precincts? Because it sounds like they were updated ahead of time, and if they can be checked before they're sent out to the polling precincts.
Okay. The advanced voting poll pads only have district combos. The Election Day has actual voters' information there. And the date that they use, because the last day to register to be in that election for May 24th was April 25th. So they kept going back to that date, even though we made the corrections to the voters. So anyone voting during advanced voting, they're going to look at ENET, which had the correct information. But on Election Day, the poll pad reverted back to April 25th. So that's why the old information, and we didn't know until the end of the day.
Is there anything that can be done that you can check that?
So with my intentions, just thinking about that this morning, going over some of my notes, that I spoke with the Center of Election Systems, who did not have anything to do with the pulling of it to be in the poll pass, but they advised that if we made any changes or anything was like that to occur again, to reach out to No Inc. to let them be aware that something has taken place that might have helped. I didn't get a definite certain answer to that, but I do have a communication in to find out, to explain to them what happened and what they can do to assist in making sure that that didn't happen again. If there was something that needed to be corrected, what could we do to make sure that what happened Election Day didn't happen again? Because we were sure that we did what we were supposed to do, and then that happened. So I'm hoping that I will get some good communication assistance in making sure that doesn't happen again.
Thank you.
Has the state made a decision as to whether they're going to stick with Jarvis or ENET? Which one are they going to stick with?
Last communication is that they were going back to Jarvis, and I want to say it was going to be in August.
I didn't see anything official from the state, but surely they didn't invest all that they did to just get rid of Jarvis. So I feel like it's coming back. We just don't have an official date.
Yeah, they did have, and I do recall a communication saying August, because I remember thinking,
I didn't see it.
yeah, I remember just thinking that I just wish this was not, and I just say that this to me was not the year to implement something that was so new. We had a lot that was going on that we made aware to state previous in our August conference, that this redistricting, qualifying, and having to have another conference right together was going to be extremely difficult to grab hold. And so when they announced that we was going to have a new election system, that also put another strain. And then when that one didn't go right, and then we had to go back to the other, yeah, I am not excited about hearing it, but there was communication. Again, it's nothing official that they said. They actually haven't spoke of that for a while now, I guess focusing on the primary. But it did say, they did speak of it being brought back in August.
Madam Chair. So Director Pitts,
Yes, ma'am.
going forward with the elections in June,
Yes, ma'am.
can we confidently say, as long as all the citizens and all that information has been input into ENET correctly, we can safely say that what is going to be uploaded onto the poll pads will be accurate? That's the question.
I am assured that would take place. Again, I've made communication with No Ink so they can make sure that if something was, being that we're doing this audit and making corrections, that I want to make sure that they pull all that forward for the June election. I want to say yes, that they would do that, but again, I have not gotten a communication. I tried to have something for today, but.
And part two of my question has to do with Ms. Catherine. You mentioned that audit will be, it will be a big project or job to do.
It will.
Do you have an estimate of how long that may take and that it will be done, I guess, in a timely manner prior to the next election?
I don't know the amount of time it will take, but whatever it is, I will make sure that it is done. The easiest way to perform the audit is by precinct, which is the way the GIS report is. It lists every street address within a precinct, and then it gives me the old combo numbers, and it gives me the new, district numbers. And those district numbers feed into a combo code. And all the combo codes are attached to precincts. So by precinct, I will go in and make sure that on everyone on those streets, in those precincts, because it's a spreadsheet, so I can sort it however I need to, which makes it go faster.
Right.
But we will make sure that every street is correct in ENET prior to this next upload to No Ink.
Thank you.
Madam Director, will you be able to get precinct cards out to the citizens before the runoff and before the next election?
I checked the week before the election and spoke with Secretary of State and asking them to give me an ETA of them being sent to us. They just checked the status and said that they were being printed. I was not able to get an exact date when the precinct cards would be delivered.
I'm sorry, I missed the first word. They said what?
The ETA, I apologize, estimated time of arrival of the precinct cards, they were not able to give me an exact date. They just expressed to me at that current time, the status was that they were being printed and that it will be some time before we will get them, but they didn't give me an exact.
Follow up to that, have the maps been updated in the office?
Yes, ma'am.
The 2017 maps taken down?
Correct, yes, ma'am. That was done on May 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman, do you feel like the state was delayed the certification of the ballot for this last election for a longer time than necessary?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Do you think the Secretary of State, the state delayed the certification of the ballot longer than they should have?
The certification of the ballot? I'm sorry, if you elucidate.
They certify the ballot that we're going to use, the state.
The state sent us ballots to proof to make sure that it's the items that should be on there, the races and the candidates, they do send it to us to proof. And then we send it back to them, giving correction.
Do you seem like it was a longer time during this election than it should have been before you got clearance of the ballot?
I would say yes. When you, Catherine? Yes. They had to do the entire state, and then, as you all may know, The ballots were extremely long with a lot of questions, and then some races had at least 9 people for one race.
Thank you.
And who actually proofs the ballots in our office?
Our staff do, Catherine, myself, we have some elections. Everyone. Yeah, instead of me going down the line, we take, everyone. We have everybody on board, so we put them in teams of 2, so once somebody can look at it, and then the other look at it, and make sure that nobody eyes cross and not, miss a mark.
Madam Director, will you be able to get the ballots online, the ballot sample ballots on our website, that the voters may see what's being voted on?
So as far as sample ballots, that comes directly from state. Once we send the corrections and approve the ballots, once they're approved, then it goes forward with the Secretary of State to put them on the Georgia My Voter page. This previous election, we were not able to put ballots on the website because of it being 248 ballot styles. So that's why they have the Georgia My Voter page, so that you can go and look at your individual ballot yourself, and because of the length of it.
But they were not put on that site, is that correct?
They were put on the Georgia My Voter page.
And what day were they put on there, do you know?
I do apologize, I don't remember the exact date that they actually uploaded them, but they were there because, again, once we was brought to our attention, Ms. Bell, who went to look at her sample ballot, it was on there and it was incorrect. And then once we made the corrections, we went back and pulled different ones, pull them up to make sure that the correct ballot came up, and it did. And so that's, again, unfortunately, final election day would have crossover happened where it was still incorrect on election day. So they were on the Georgia My Voter page, the sample ballots.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that conclude your report?
I have one more. I wanted to give recognition to our IT team here at Henry County. Each and every election, they assist us from having someone assigned to each district. So if there's a situation happen and they're closer to a polling location where us at the office are not, we send them out with some little to-dos and some extension cords, forms, and things of that nature, just like you all that go out and check on the different precincts and making sure that they're running top shape, and they are just awesome with doing that. And also election night, they make sure that our election results are shown on the county webpage and make sure that it's working properly. And so I just wanted to make sure that I recognize them as well as being such a great asset. They have a young man named Charles that comes, and not sure if you're all aware, I think some of you do know, on election day, being that our main office is a municipal polling location during the municipal odd year, everyone feels like that's where they're supposed to go vote every election. And we have lines like people are there to vote, which confuses some people that come in because they say, oh, okay, everybody's here, let's go vote. So we have part of the IT staff that sits up front with some of our staff that assists voters with letting them know where they go. So I just wanted to make sure that you all are aware how much assistance and help that we do get from Team Henry, and the IT department shines in that every election.
Did you cover your item B, board request?
The board request was just one that I had sent out some information on numbers of people that voted, because Board Member Schmills wanted to see some numbers for the report of winning and losing. And I sent that out to the entire board. Just wanted to make sure you all recognize that I did fulfill that request.
Madam Chair and Director, I do want to mention one thing at Stockbridge Community Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I noticed, and one of the things that I'd like to see the poll manager do, is use the large auditorium. The church doesn't charge extra for doing that. They allow us to do it. And he had a very small area at that church. that he was using, and there were voters that were standing outside, and that didn't need to happen. So if you can, let the poll manager use the auditorium.
You say that was where, Stockbridge?
Stockbridge Community Church
So I'll
on 155.
I will contact Stockbridge Community, because in most cases, we don't select the area that we are in those facilities. They tell us where to go. So I will contact that particular church and talk with them and see if it's a possibility to use the auditorium.
My conversation with the poll manager was that he could have used the auditorium. The church would allow him to use it, but he chose to use the smaller area.
Okay, well, we'll make that correction.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last thing,
Yes,
I would
ma'am.
like to inform the citizens that the board members individually visited all of our precincts, except for 2 or 3, I think, up in Hampton that we were not able to cover. And we may have covered it, I may just not have gotten the memo. But I would like to tell the voters that we personally visited every precinct, and we're aware of their concerns, and we certainly appreciate all of the poll workers, especially the poll managers, and thank them for their service.
And I would like to piggyback that, because with our pickup the next day, they're not used to going back to the polling locations. I did have quite a few that was dedicated with showing up, and those that did, I just want to let them know that they rock. My poll workers are very, very dedicated. Some of them fell ill, and they were called out from the first day of early voting all the way up to election day. But we have so many dedicated constituents in the county of Henry that came and stepped up, showed up, let us train them, and got them out there. So I wanted to piggyback that and let them know how much we appreciate them.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Director Pitts, before you step down, you mentioned about past advanced voting, and on election day, I was there, and there were a number of voters that came to the main office wanting to vote. Just wanted to make our voters aware that that location is for early voting only, and that on voting day, you should go to your polling place, and that there were a lot of voters that showed up there. We just want to make sure that you are aware that on election day, you should go to your polling place. And that we do have, during our, not runoffs, but during our primaries and during general elections, we have 3 weeks, a full 3 weeks of early voting. Go ahead, Director Pitts.
I just wanted to make sure we explain that our main location is a polling location, the odd years for municipal, and that's where the biggest confusion come in at. Even if they look at it on Georgia My Voter page, they'll tell me, I said, let's look on your voter map. No, I look. I said, well, let's look at it together. And then I show them. They'll show me, see, it's right here. And I said, but that's the municipality. You have to look at the county. And it's just education, and we take time to do that and explain it to them, although it still happens. But that's why we have a process set up in place to make sure we have someone ready to assist them, letting them know where they go on election day if it's not there.
And it is education, and I would like to see the board and some of the staff do some of the education, go into some of the subdivisions off election years and do some education. Let them know who we are and what we do. Education is very important, and I think we need to do more of that.
Madam Chair, I also had the same problem. A couple was disgruntled because they voted advanced voting there, early voting, and then they thought when they came back that they could vote there again. Mm-hmm. But their precinct was at another location, mm-hmm. and they was kind of disgruntled at that situation.
I would like to advise maybe we should have law enforcement there on election day at the headquarters. There were a lot of disgruntled citizens, voters, that were very upset, and having a law enforcement agent there would help.
And all the precincts I visited was smooth. They worked hard. They knew what they were doing, and the voters were going at a steady pace and go right through, and no complaints about that whatsoever.
Madam Chair, I would just like to say that I would piggyback off of what Board Member Calloway said. All of the precincts I went to, I didn't encounter any disgruntled voters. And I would just like to say that if we have the poll managers like I saw, they can handle disgruntled voters, and I would hope that calling law enforcement would be the last result. We do not want to intimidate voters and keep them from coming out to vote. So I would hope that law enforcement would be the last resort before we call someone. And I also would like to let our constituents and our voters know that if you would like for us to come out and do some education, then please contact us. Our emails are on the website, and we will be glad to come out and do some education. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't mind, I did speak with Colonel Yarbrough, and what he does not have them on site, but he does have officers circulating the areas of the polling locations, just in case if something were to happen and have to be called. They had them circulating so it wouldn't take so long to get there.
Madam Chair, do we entertain and maybe discuss establishing a hotline during the elections? A hotline where anybody that's disgruntled can call and receive attention promptly, and also talk with the sheriff and the sheriff and the district attorney.
That's a good idea. Right now, we do use our office, which is difficult. We have people that answer calls and phones, but sometimes they are pulled to do other tasks. So we can look into maybe doing that. I know for an election, I think it was the 2020 presidential to be exact, if not the runoff in January of 2021, we actually had a miniature call center at our emergency management center, the 911 center. So that may be something that we can look into doing going forward on a regular basis.
Well,
Just a good
talking
idea.
about a guarded line where you had someone on this guarded line all the time. We had a discussion about signs. That's another thing. The candidate signs. There's always going to be some issues with that. And as I was told, and the law only allows us very little leeway of signs, and that's a 150-yard rule, which we can move signs around there. But if there's any other problem with signs, then the election board is limited or cannot do anything.
Yes, sir, that's personal property. When you have 150 feet out, and then once it's there, if it's personal property past that 150 feet, and the candidates put it there, but the owner of the personal property don't want it on there, they have the right to not have it on their property.
And I understand that. And I appreciate that. I just would like to have a location where if someone was causing issues, that they could call the number, and it might be turned over to the have a sheriff's deputy go out and take a look at the situation. That's something that we might want to discuss and think about.
Yes, I reached out to Henry County Code Enforcement in one particular city, City of McDonough, and I'm gonna work some things out with the county administration to assist in finding out who is the person that we will go to and handle those situations, because they have certain guidelines, and I don't think some of the ones that we brought to their attention fell in their guidelines to handle. So I'm sure with the assistance with the county administration, they will help us come up with a better plan when those things take place. Outside of the personal property, that's totally out of our district. We can't do anything about that.
That becomes a law enforcement situation at that point, right? If it's a conflict.
I have to be honest, I'm not sure. I just know that if it's their property, they have to say so what they have on their land. But I don't know the logistics of that. Like I said, I can work with the county administration with getting me some advice and guidance on that.
Madam Director, can you address the issue of one pastor in particular taking down all the signs at one of the precincts, and then the signs being taken down at, I think, 2 other precincts?
I'm just aware that it took place, and once I found out, first we were trying to find out who was the person that was taking it down, and the poll manager investigated and found out that it was actually the pastor who is over the property of that church. And again, we can't interfere with the personal.
Yes, but the signs were not they were outside the 150-foot mark.
Even if it's outside the 150 feet mark, but it lands onto their personal property, we can't do anything about that if they remove it.
I don't understand that at all. Seems like to me that in their contract that they sign with us to be a precinct location, they have to commit to follow our guidelines as far as signs, candidate signs, and not take them down. That is an important issue to me. They have no authority, in my opinion, if the signs were outside the 150-yard mark. What gave them the authority to take the signs down?
Well, I may recommend that we revisit the contract on how to handle that, but also be mindful we have a very hard time getting polling locations. But that is something that we can revisit if you would like. But as you all know, Wesley Lakes has been temporarily at Wesley Lakes Elementary for over a year now. And then we have some other polling locations that are getting very frustrated and with elections coming and taking up space. So respectfully, I don't think it's nothing ill will. It's just that it doesn't work with their schedule. And so also with the precincts, we have to make sure that they are properly lined up and as far as distance from the voters, not having to go too far out or whatnot. So there's a whole lot that goes with that, and we just have to be mindful of that. But like I said, I'll work to get more information on how to handle or what are the different things that are the yes or no with the personal property, being able to remove those things. Although they are acting as a polling elections place, I'm not sure if we have anything to say so about that, especially if it's not in the contract, if they did not sign saying so.
I definitely think we should revisit our contracts and make sure that that is in the contract hereafter.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, Director, I think it will just be helpful if you could send and share the law with us, what the law says, because we want to make sure we are within the law, and we also don't want to push these polling places, because we want to keep these polling places because we already have a hard time finding and maintaining polling places. So we want to be within the law, and we want to maintain our rapport and relationships with the polling places. At the end of the day, these are campaign signs. I don't know if this is the hill we want to die on. So thank you.
Well, I still feel it's a very important position that the signs not be taken down. If they are lawfully within the limits, outside of that 150-foot mark. There were signs that were dumped in the dumpster, and it's just a hill that I feel is very important, that those signs not be taken down. That's my personal opinion.
And I agree with Chair. We pay these polling places, and it should be a fair process. Candidates should be able to put their signs there at the polling places without having the fear of them being removed and thrown away. So I agree with Madam Chair on that.
I agree. Henry County candidate signs is a big situation during elections. A lot of times, you can support a candidate by sending money, and if you don't have the money to send them, you can't help them out by putting their signs out, and that's a statement that you're supporting them. They don't know who you are, but you're actually helping the candidate and helping them by putting the signs out. That's why I brought up about maybe having a hotline where if we need to, we could get a third party, such as the deputy sheriff or the sheriff's department, and of course the sheriff and the attorneys would have to agree on this. But and another thing too, if we're under contract, and I agree that we have issues about maintaining polling places a lot of times. Some churches, which we're in churches now, don't want to do it, and then some churches do, but they have reservations after they get started. So I understand that, but the signs are getting to be such a big issue that I'd like to see some kind of a situation where we could take the pressure off elections to look into these situations.
Madam Chair. Director Pitts, will you please share a copy of the contract with the board?
Yes, ma'am.
One issue that I found out when I was trying to find the precinct for Wesley Lakes was the requirement that the pastor give his salary. I never got that resolved with staff, so I just gave up on the whole issue. I still don't have it resolved. I couldn't go in. As a subcontractor, I could not go in and look at the application, but that was the hesitancy of the pastor to accept being a precinct location. Is that still a requirement that the pastor give his salary and financial information?
The information that I received from that, saying that, was from the pastor that you're speaking about. I'm not sure what all the information entails with the vendors and information that they have to give, because they would be considered a vendor to be paid to use as a polling location. And so the last time, an email communication I saw, Catherine Hicks, one of my staff members, she sent you another application of the vendor for them, or link for them to go through and try it again, because to our understanding that it was said that they don't ask for the salary, so we wanted them to go through the process again. But I never heard anything back, and I did not follow up. I just noticed the email chain between you and her. And so I'm not sure if maybe you can find out if they would go through it again and see if maybe that's changed since the last time that they, attempted to do that, because that would be great, because we still need a home for Wesley Lakes.
Could you provide us a copy of that application?
Absolutely.
So we can see for ourselves what they ask
Well,
the churches?
it's actually a link. It's electronic that they have to
I
actually
know,
go
but
through.
I could not get in it, and I would
Okay.
like a hard copy of that application, please.
I will
Right.
find out if that's possible.
Ma'am?
I will find out if it's possible, if there is a paper form for that.
Madam Director, we pay all churches, right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Or they pay $250?
$250.
Okay. Okay.
That's all for me.
Okay.
That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Director Pitts.
Thank you.
We move on to old business, the voter challenge procedure.
I'll take that. Madam Chair, Attorney Rowan sent us a revised version of the procedures for responding to voter challenges. I don't know if everyone got a chance to look at it. She emailed it to us.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So in number 2, under section 1 for challenge of applicant for registration for other electors, A, B, and C, Attorney Rowan, I'm assuming this is the minimal standard that we asked for.
This is not necessarily I'm sorry, if you can all hear me. I don't know that this is necessarily the minimum standard, but what I saw in the communication that was sent to me, that you all kind of wanted an example of what a minimum standard would be. And so that specific provision says these are examples, but not limited to. So that when someone is reading the voter challenge procedures, they'll know like this type of petition or written specification would not meet the requirement for a challenge. So it's more so an example than anything else.
Okay. Then there was another ask about being able to incorporate a way for the challenger to be able to withdraw the challenge before reaching the hearing. I don't see that in here, but I also see where the board shall send the challenger a written notice of rejection specifying the reason for the said rejection. I feel like that's enough without having to have a way for the challenger to be able to pull back.
Yeah, if you all would still like that withdrawal provision in there, I'll be more than happy to add it. But based on the direction you gave, I thought the rejection based on a where it didn't meet the standards, or it was not in writing, or it was not specified enough, the board could reject the actual challenge, would be sufficient in lieu of doing a withdrawal. which a person can always still withdraw, but then I can add that in the provision if that's what you would prefer.
I feel like this is enough. Look for the rest of the board for your opinion on that.
I did have one question regarding some additional language that you sent. Was that in this? Because I wasn't sure if it was actually in this.
No, the other three things that I had in the email that that the CAB recommended was the standard which Attorney Rowan has in ABC in Section 2. That's in here. And then I just asked about incorporating the challenger being able to pull back. And I feel like that section under C, the board shall send to challenger written notice of the rejection specifying the reason for said rejection will be enough, not unless the rest of the board has an opinion on that.
Any other discussions on the other challenges?
Oh, I'm not finished.
Sorry.
Sorry, Chair Crumbly. I apologize, I did send this late and you may not have gotten a chance to read it. I did talk to Attorney Rowan about adding reference to the National Voting Registration Act. In Section 8, it specifically talks about federal elections and maintenance of the voter roll, and that you cannot not to be removing someone basically within 90 days of a federal election. And I talked to Attorney Rowan about adding this to the appendix to this procedure, because I would like for when someone looks at this procedure before they come before the board to know that if they want to remove someone from the challenge voters, that during a federal election within 90 days that this cannot be done because of this law. And so I'm not asking for us to approve this, because I'm asking for additional information to be added, and Attorney Rowan will review the law before adding this to this procedure.
Yes, that's correct. I will pull the actual statute and see whatever case law is related to it and add it to the appendix accordingly and send it out to you all.